The massive space station called Kepler hung in the darkness like a glowing city. Ships of all sizes moved around it like busy insects. Most of these ships belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, the most powerful force in this part of the galaxy. Admiral Klex stood on the command deck of his flagship, looking out at the busy space around the station. His blue skin had the scars of many battles, and his forearms moved quickly as he worked on different control panels at once. The Zephyrians had ruled this area of space for over 500 years. They were used to being the strongest. Lieutenant Vash, a younger Zephyrian with bright green markings on his face, suddenly looked up from his sensor station. His eyes were wide with surprise. "Admiral, we have something strange," Vash said. "A new ship just came out of hyperspace at the edge of our space." Klex walked over to the sensor station. His heavy boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. "Show me," he said. The main screen lit up with a picture of space. A small dot appeared at the edge of the display. It looked tiny compared to the massive Zephyrian ships around the station. "What kind of ship is it?" Klex asked. "Unknown, sir," Vash replied. "The design is not in our database." "The energy readings are odd." Klex looked at the readings. The ship was much smaller than his cruisers, but something about its power signature made him feel uneasy. It was different from anything he had seen before. "Are they trying to talk to us?" Klex asked. "Yes, sir. They are asking for permission to dock. They want to talk about trade and diplomatic relations." Klex raised one eyebrow. Most new species that found the Zephyrian Empire were either very scared or very angry. This ship seemed calm. "Put them on screen," Klex ordered. The main display changed to show the inside of the strange ship. A human male appeared on screen. He had brown hair and calm blue eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with some kind of rank markings. "Greetings," the human said with a friendly smile. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Liberty, representing the United Earth Systems. We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations with your people." Klex studied the alien carefully. The creature called itself human and looked somewhat like a Zephyrian, but with only 2 arms and different skin color. What surprised Klex most was how relaxed the captain seemed. "I am Admiral Klex of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet," Klex replied. "You are in Zephyrian space, Captain Morrison. What is this United Earth Systems?" "We are a peaceful alliance of colonies and worlds centered around our home planet Earth," Morrison answered. "We have been expanding our exploration of this region and hope to make contact with the civilizations here." Klex looked around his command deck. His officers were all watching the screen with interest. None of them had heard of Earth or humans before. "How many ships do you have with you, Captain?" Klex asked. Morrison smiled. "Just the Liberty, Admiral. We believe in peaceful first contact." Klex felt more confused. A single small ship approaching the most powerful military force in the sector? Either these humans were very stupid or very confident. Neither option made him comfortable. "Very well," Klex said. "You may dock at Kepler Station, but understand that you are surrounded by the Third Imperial Fleet. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction." "Of course, Admiral," Morrison replied. "We have no hostile intentions. We look forward to meeting your people." The communication ended and Klex stared at the empty screen. Something felt wrong about this whole situation. "Vash," he said, "put the fleet on yellow alert." "Yes, sir." "Should I increase patrols around the station?" "Do it, and I want constant scans of that human ship. Watch for any other vessels that might be hiding nearby." Lieutenant Vash began giving orders to the fleet. Soon, dozens of Zephyrian warships moved into defensive positions around Kepler Station. Each ship was 10 times larger than the small human vessel. Klex watched as the Liberty moved slowly toward the station. The ship handled smoothly, but he noticed the pilot seemed very skilled. Most species had trouble controlling their ships in the complex traffic patterns around Kepler. "Admiral," Vash said, "I am getting some strange readings from their ship." "What kind of readings?" "Their power output is higher than it should be for a ship that size, and their hull seems to be made of materials I do not recognize." Klex nodded. "Keep watching them. I want to know everything about this ship and its crew." As the Liberty docked with the station, Klex felt a strange feeling in his stomach. In all his years of commanding fleets, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling him that these humans were more than they appeared to be. He walked to the large window that showed the docking bay. The human ship was small and simple-looking. It did not have the bright colors or fancy decorations that most species put on their ships. It looked practical. like a tool made for a specific job. "Sir," another officer said, "the humans are requesting a meeting with Station Command. They want to discuss trade agreements and diplomatic relations. Tell them I will meet with them in 1 hour," Klex said, "and make sure our security teams are ready. I want guards at every important location on the station." "Do you think they are dangerous, sir?" Klex looked out at the small human ship again. "I do not know what they are," he said, "but something tells me we should be very careful." As he prepared for the meeting, Klex thought about the captain's words. The human had said he represented an alliance of colonies and worlds. Most new species were lucky to have 1 or 2 planets. How could a species nobody had heard of have multiple colonies? And why did Captain Morrison seem so calm? Any normal species meeting the Zephyrian Empire for the first time would be either terrified or trying to show how strong they were. These humans acted like meeting a galactic superpower was just another day at work. Klex had a bad feeling that this first contact was going to change everything. He just hoped his fleet was ready for whatever these humans were really planning. The small human ship sat quietly in the docking bay, looking harmless. But Klex had been a soldier long enough to know that the most dangerous enemies often looked the most harmless. He ordered his personal guard to be ready and headed toward the meeting room. It was time to find out what these humans really wanted. The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss and Captain Jake Morrison stepped onto Kepler Station, followed by his team. Admiral Klex watched from the observation deck as the humans walked through the busy station corridors. They moved with confidence, looking around with interest but showing no signs of fear or surprise. Morrison was followed by a tall woman with short red hair. She wore the same blue uniform and carried herself like a soldier. Behind her walked a man with dark skin and glasses, who seemed more interested in the station's technology than the armed Zephyrian guards watching them. "The woman is Commander Lisa Barnes, his second in command," Lieutenant Vash reported, reading from his datapad. "The other man is Dr. Ryan Walsh, their science officer." Klex nodded and headed toward the meeting room. When he arrived, the 3 humans were already seated at the large conference table. They had refused the escort of armed guards, saying they preferred to walk around the station on their own. "Captain Morrison," Klex said as he entered the room, "welcome to Kepler Station." Morrison stood and extended his hand. It took Klex a moment to realize the human wanted to shake hands, a greeting custom the Admiral had never seen before. "Thank you for meeting with us, Admiral," Morrison said. "This is an impressive station. The engineering work is excellent." Klex sat down across from the humans. Behind him, 2 Zephyrian guards took positions by the door. The humans seemed to ignore the guards completely. "Before we begin," Klex said, "I must ask about your home system. Our records show no previous contact with Earth or the United Earth systems." Dr. Walsh looked up from the datapad he had been studying. "That is not surprising, Admiral. Earth is quite far from here. We have only recently begun exploring this region of space." "How far?" Klex asked. "About 47,000 light-years," Morrison replied casually. Klex tried not to show his surprise. That distance was impossible for most species to travel. Even with the best Zephyrian ships, such a journey would take many months. "That is quite a distance," Klex said carefully. "How long did your journey take?" "About 3 weeks," Commander Barnes answered. "The Liberty is one of our faster ships." 3 weeks? Klex felt his blood turn cold. No known technology could travel that distance so quickly. Either these humans were lying or they had technology far beyond anything the Zephyrians possessed. "Impressive," Klex said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Your ships must be very advanced," Morrison smiled. "We have good engineers. Dr. Walsh here designed many of our propulsion improvements." Dr. Walsh looked embarrassed. "I just made some small changes to the standard drives. Nothing too special." Klex decided to test these humans. He stood and walked to the large window that showed the Zephyrian fleet. Hundreds of massive warships floated in perfect formations around the station. "As you can see," Klex said, "the Zephyrian Empire controls a vast territory. This is just one of our smaller fleets." Morrison joined him at the window. "Very impressive formations, Admiral. Our 7th Fleet would love to see such precise coordination. They practice similar maneuvers, but not on this scale." 7th Fleet? How many fleets did these humans have? Most species were lucky to have 7 ships total. "You have multiple fleets?" Klex asked. "Oh yes," Barnes said from the table. "Earth maintains several fleet commands for different regions. The 7th specializes in deep space operations. Dr. Walsh had pulled out a small device and was scanning the window. "Admiral, if you do not mind me asking, what type of shield generators do you use on your larger ships? The energy patterns are fascinating." Klex looked at the device. It was smaller than anything the Zephyrians had that could perform such scans. "Those are classified specifications, Doctor." "Of course, sorry," Walsh said, putting the device away. "I was just curious about your approach to quantum field manipulation. We use a similar system, but your power distribution seems more efficient in some ways." Quantum field manipulation? That was one of the most advanced technologies in the galaxy. How could these unknown humans understand it so well? "Where did you learn about quantum fields?" Klex asked. Walsh looked confused by the question. "Standard engineering training, Admiral. It is basic technology where we come from." "Basic technology?" Klex felt more worried with each passing minute. Over the next hour, they discussed trade possibilities. The humans were interested in rare metals and offered advanced medical supplies in return. But every conversation revealed more disturbing information. Morrison mentioned that Earth had several dozen colony worlds, but spoke about them like they were simple industrial sites. Commander Barnes talked about patrol routes that covered distances most species could not even imagine. Dr. Walsh asked technical questions that showed deep understanding of the most advanced Zephyrian military systems. Most disturbing was their attitude. They acted like equals talking to equals, not like a new species meeting a galactic superpower for the first time. During a break in the meeting, Klex took Barnes on a tour of the station's command center. He wanted to impress her with the massive displays showing Zephyrian territory across hundreds of star systems. "This is our operational map," Klex explained. "The Zephyrian Empire controls over 2,000 systems across this spiral arm." Barnes studied the display with professional interest. "Impressive logistics, Admiral. Maintaining supply lines across such distances must be challenging. We faced similar problems when we expanded into the outer colonies." "When was this expansion?" Klex asked. "About 50 years ago," Barnes replied. "We learned a lot from watching other species handle similar growth. The Hegemony War was particularly educational." Klex stopped walking. The Hegemony War had been a massive conflict between the Zephyrian Empire and the Hegemony Alliance. It had ended 50 years ago with a Zephyrian victory, but very few species knew the details of that war. "You know about the Hegemony War?" he asked. Barnes nodded. "Tragic loss of life on both sides. We hoped the peace treaty would hold longer than it did." "Peace treaty?" There had been no peace treaty. The war had ended with the complete destruction of the Hegemony fleet. How could these humans know details that were not in any public records? When they returned to the meeting room, Dr. Walsh was examining a wall display showing local trade routes. He was asking detailed questions about shipping schedules and security patrols. "Doctor," Klex said carefully, "you seem very interested in our military operations." Walsh looked up, startled. "Oh, just professional curiosity, Admiral. Supply chain management is fascinating. The coordination required to maintain trade security across such a large area must be enormous." "It is," Klex replied. "We have patrol schedules that most species could not imagine." "I am sure," Morrison said. "Protecting civilian shipping is always challenging. Pirates and raiders make it difficult to maintain safe travel routes." How did he know about the raider problems? That information was classified to prevent panic among civilian traders. As the meeting continued, Klex became more convinced that these humans were not what they appeared to be. They knew too much, understood too much, and seemed far too comfortable for a species making first contact with a galactic power. When the meeting ended, Morrison thanked Klex for his time and said they would return tomorrow to continue discussions. As the humans left, Klex watched them walk through the station corridors. Other aliens moved out of their way, but the humans seemed not to notice. They acted like they belonged there. After they were gone, Klex called his intelligence officer to his office. "Captain Yex," he said, "I want you to research these humans. Find out everything you can about Earth and the United Earth systems." "Yes, sir. What should I look for?" "Anything," Klex replied. "And check our historical records. I have a feeling these humans have been around longer than they claim." As night fell over Kepler Station, the small human ship sat quietly in its docking bay, but Admiral Klex could not shake the feeling that he was being watched by something much larger and more dangerous than one small ship. The second day of talks began in the station's main dining area. Admiral Klex had arranged for the humans to experience Zephyrian culture through food and conversation. He hoped the relaxed setting would help him learn more about these mysterious visitors. Captain Morrison and his team seemed to enjoy the meal. They asked polite questions about Zephyrian history and culture, but with each answer, Klex became more suspicious of their knowledge. "This food is excellent," Dr. Walsh said, eating something that looked like blue pasta. "The protein synthesis is very clever. Do you grow this in hydroponics bays or do you use matter conversion?" "Matter conversion?" That technology was restricted to military vessels and major colonies. How could this human know about it? "We use several methods," Klex replied carefully. "How does Earth handle food production for your colonies?" Morrison took a drink before answering. "We have large farming worlds in the inner systems. Most of our colonies are industrial or research stations, so we ship food to them. It works well enough, though the transport costs can be high." "How many colonies do you have?" Klex asked. "About 63 active settlements," Commander Barnes replied. "Though some are just mining operations with small crews." 63 colonies? Most species in the galaxy had trouble maintaining 3 or 4 settlements. The Zephyrians had built their empire over centuries, and they only had about 200 colonies total. "That is quite an achievement for a new spacefaring species," Klex said. Barnes looked confused. "New? Admiral, humans have been traveling between stars for over 300 years. 300 years? But there were no records of human contact with any known species. How could they have been spacefaring for so long without anyone knowing? Have you had contact with other species during this time?" Klex asked. "Some contact," Morrison said vaguely. "We prefer to observe and learn before making formal introductions. Different species have different customs." Dr. Walsh nodded. "We learned early that it is better to understand a civilization before trying to establish relations. Some species do not react well to unexpected visitors." There was something in the way he said it that made Klex think the humans had learned this lesson through experience. But with whom? After the meal, Barnes asked for a tour of the station's docking facilities. She seemed particularly interested in the larger ships and their weapons systems. "These are impressive vessels," she said, looking up at a massive Zephyrian cruiser. "The armor plating design is very efficient. We use something similar on our heavy units." "Heavy units?" Klex asked. "Our battleships and carriers," Barnes explained. "The lighter ships use different protection systems." "Battleships and carriers?" These humans talked about their military like they were a major space power, not a newly contacted species with one small ship. Meanwhile, Dr. Walsh was examining the station's power systems with great interest. He asked detailed questions about energy distribution and backup systems that showed deep understanding of space station engineering. "Your power grid is very stable," he told the station engineer. "The redundancy systems are well designed. We had similar problems with our deep space stations until we developed better power management." "Deep space stations? How many installations did these humans have?" That afternoon, Klex decided to test the humans more directly. He invited Morrison to observe fleet training exercises from the command center. Surely watching hundreds of Zephyrian warships in action would impress upon the human the power of the Empire. The main display showed the 3rd Imperial Fleet in combat formation. Massive ships moved in perfect coordination, their weapon systems charging and targeting practice drones. It was an impressive show of military might. Morrison watched with professional interest. "Beautiful formations, Admiral. Very clean execution. Your communication systems must be excellent to coordinate so many ships." "It takes years of training to achieve this level of coordination," Klex said proudly. "I imagine so," Morrison replied. "We had similar challenges when we expanded our fleet sizes. The communication delays over long distances were the biggest problem." "Fleet sizes? Plural? How large are your fleets, Captain?" Klex asked. Morrison seemed to think for a moment. "The 7th Fleet has about 40 ships, I think. The 1st and 3rd are larger, maybe 60 each. But I have not seen the complete roster recently." Klex felt dizzy. This human was casually talking about fleets that rivaled major Zephyrian battle groups, and he was talking about multiple fleets like they were common knowledge. "Those are significant forces," Klex said carefully. "Standard exploration and defense units," Morrison replied. "Nothing too impressive. The real heavy fleets stay closer to Earth for system defense." "Heavy fleets? How many ships did these humans have?" During the demonstration, One of the Zephyrian ships suffered a minor system failure. Morrison watched the recovery procedures with interest. Nice damage control response, he said. Your crews are well trained. We use similar procedures when ships take battle damage. Battle damage? Klex asked. Have your people been in combat recently? Morrison seemed to realize he had said too much. Just training exercises, Admiral. We believe in realistic preparation. But something in his tone suggested otherwise. These humans had combat experience, real combat experience. That evening, Klex met with his senior officers to discuss the situation. Captain Yex had been searching the databases all day for any mention of humans or Earth. I found some interesting information, sir, Yex reported. There are scattered reports going back over 2 centuries. Ships matching unknown designs, brief contacts with traders, sightings of vessels that disappeared before proper identification. What kind of reports? Klex asked, mostly from frontier regions. Independent traders, exploration ships, mining operations. All describe brief encounters with polite but secretive vessels. The ships never stayed long enough for detailed scans. Lieutenant Vash looked up from his datapad. Sir, I have been analyzing the energy readings from the human ship. The power signature is very unusual. How so? It is much stronger than it should be for a ship that size, and there are some readings I cannot explain. It is like the ship has systems running that we cannot detect. Klex felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of systems? I do not know, sir. But the energy patterns suggest active scanning equipment, communication arrays, and possibly weapon systems that are not visible to our sensors. The room fell silent. If the human ship had stealth technology, what else might it be hiding? There is more, Yex continued. I found a classified report from the Hegemony War. In the final battle, when our forces were losing, sensors detected multiple unknown vessels joining the fight. They appeared suddenly, engaged hegemony ships with devastating effectiveness, then disappeared after the battle. Klex remembered that battle. He had been a young officer then, serving on a destroyer that had taken heavy damage. The tide of the battle had turned suddenly and unexpectedly. The official reports credited superior Zephyrian tactics, but many officers had wondered about the strange energy signatures detected during the final assault. How many unknown vessels? He asked. 17, sir. They appeared on sensors for less than an hour, but tactical analysis suggests they were responsible for destroying over half the hegemony fleet. The room was very quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Had humans been involved in the hegemony war? Had they helped the Zephyrians win without ever revealing themselves? Sir, Vash said quietly, if these humans have been operating in our space for centuries without us knowing, and if they helped us win our greatest victory, what does that say about their real capabilities? Klex looked out at the small human ship in the docking bay. Suddenly, it did not look harmless anymore. It looked like the tip of an iceberg, with something much larger and more dangerous hidden beneath the surface. Double the security patrols, he ordered, and increase sensor sweeps of the surrounding space. If there is one human ship here, there might be others we cannot see. As his officers hurried to carry out his orders, Klex wondered what game these humans were really playing. They had revealed themselves now after centuries of secrecy. But why? What had changed to make them willing to show themselves to the galaxy? And more importantly, if this was just one ship making contact, where was the rest of their fleet? Admiral Klex could not sleep. He stood in his private quarters looking out at the space around Kepler Station. The human ship sat quietly in the docking bay, but something felt wrong. His instincts, sharpened by decades of military service, were screaming that danger was near. The next morning brought disturbing news. Captain Yex had spent the entire night searching through old intelligence files, and had found information that made Klex's worst fears seem possible. Admiral, Yex said, his voice tight with worry, I found more reports. Much more. Klex met him in the secure briefing room. The walls were lined with classified files and data displays showing information from across the galaxy. Show me, Klex ordered. Yex activated the main display. It showed a star map with hundreds of small markers scattered across known space. Each marker represents a reported sighting of unknown ships over the past 200 years, Yex explained. Ships that match the general description of human vessels. Small, advanced, and always gone before proper identification could be made. Klex studied the map. The markers were everywhere, near Zephyrian space and neutral zones, even in the territory of hostile species. They have been watching everyone. Klex said quietly. It gets worse, sir. Yex continued. I found records of several pirate fleets that were destroyed by unknown attackers. The survivors all described the same thing. Small, fast ships with weapons that cut through their defenses like they were made of paper. When did these attacks happen? Over the past 50 years, always in areas where the pirates were threatening civilian shipping. The attackers never identified themselves and disappeared immediately after the battles. Klex felt his hand shake slightly. These humans had been secretly protecting trade routes across the galaxy for decades. There is more, Yex said. 3 different governments have classified reports of mysterious ships appearing during internal conflicts. In every case, the ships helped the side that was fighting against corruption or oppression. They have been interfering in our politics? Klex asked. Not interfering, sir. Helping. The reports suggest they only acted to prevent large-scale civilian casualties or the rise of particularly dangerous leaders. Klex sat down heavily. The implications were staggering. These humans had been operating as secret guardians across the galaxy for centuries, watching, protecting, and occasionally intervening to prevent disasters. Have you found any records of them ever acting against peaceful governments? He asked. No, sir. Every intervention was against pirates, slavers, or leaders who were threatening genocide. They seemed to only act to protect innocent lives. Lieutenant Vash entered the room carrying a datapad filled with new information. Admiral, he said, I have been analyzing the human ship's movements since they arrived. Their positioning is perfect. What do you mean? Klex asked. They docked in the one spot that gives them clear lines of sight to all our major systems. Their ship's orientation allows them to monitor all traffic in and out of the station, and if they needed to leave quickly, they have the best possible escape route. Vash brought up a tactical display showing the station's layout. The human ship's position was marked in red. This is not luck, sir, Vash continued. They knew exactly where to dock for maximum tactical advantage. They studied our station's design before they arrived. Klex nodded grimly. Of course they had studied the station. They had probably been watching Zephyrian operations for decades. Sir, Vash added, I also detected something else. Their ship's communication systems have been active since they arrived. They are talking to someone, but I cannot intercept the signals. What kind of communications? Klex asked. Very sophisticated quantum transmissions, the kind that would be impossible to detect without the most advanced equipment. And sir, the signals are not going toward any known human territory. Where are they going? Everywhere, Vash said quietly. Short bursts to locations all around us. As if they are coordinating with other vessels in the area. The room fell silent. The horrible truth was becoming clear. The Liberty was not alone. There were other human ships nearby, probably many of them, all invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Just then, an alarm sounded throughout the station. The lights changed to red and an urgent voice came over the communication system. All stations, this is Control. We have multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. Large fleet, unknown configuration. All ships to battle stations immediately. Klex and his officers rushed to the command center. The main display showed the approaching fleet, and what Klex saw made his blood run cold. Over 60 ships were moving toward Kepler Station at high speed. They were large, heavily armed, and flying in the distinctive formation of the Krek Swarm, the most feared pirate fleet in the sector. How did they get so close without being detected? Klex demanded. Unknown, sir, the sensor officer replied. They must have been using some kind of stealth technology. Klex looked at the tactical display. The 3rd Imperial Fleet had 38 ships around the station. The Kreks had over 60, including several massive raiders that could destroy Zephyrian cruisers in single combat. All ships formed defensive positions around the station, Klex ordered. Prepare for battle. As the Zephyrian ships moved into position, Klex noticed that the human vessel had not moved. The Liberty sat calmly in its docking bay as if nothing was happening. Should we contact the humans? Lieutenant Vash asked. Warn them to evacuate? Before Klex could answer, Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system. Kepler Control, this is Captain Morrison. We are detecting the approaching hostile fleet. Do you require assistance? Klex stared at the communication panel. The human was offering to help? His single small ship against over 60 Kreks raiders? Captain Morrison, Klex replied. We appreciate the offer, but you should evacuate immediately. The Krek swarm is extremely dangerous. Understood, Admiral, Morrison replied calmly. But the Liberty is equipped to assist in the defense if needed. We have experience with pirate operations. Experience with pirates? How much experience? The first Krex ships were now close enough for detailed scans. They were huge, covered in weapons and armor plating taken from dozens of different species. The lead ship was over 3 kilometers long and bristled with enough firepower to destroy half the station. "Admiral," the tactical officer reported, "the Krex are demanding that we surrender the station and all cargo vessels. They are giving us 5 minutes to comply." Klex looked at his fleet positions. His ships were good, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Many of his vessels were patrol ships, not heavy warships. The battle would be bloody, and he was not sure they could win. "Sir," Morrison's voice came again. "Permission to undock and assist in the defense?" Klex made a decision that would change everything. Either these humans were what they appeared to be, in which case their help would not matter much, or they were something else entirely. "Permission granted, Captain Morrison," Klex said, "but stay behind our lines. Your ship is not equipped for this kind of battle." "Understood, Admiral," Morrison replied, but something in his tone suggested he had different plans. As the Liberty undocked from the station, Klex watched it move slowly away from the docking bay. The small human ship looked tiny compared to the approaching Krex. "Fleet, 2 minutes until the Krex reach weapons range," the tactical officer reported. Klex gripped the command rail and prepared for the fight of his life. He had no idea that he was about to witness something that would change his understanding of humanity forever. The small human ship moved into position between the station and the approaching pirates. It looked like a single warrior stepping forward to face an army. But Admiral Klex was beginning to suspect that appearances could be very deceiving when it came to humans. The Krex swarm moved into attack formation like a pack of hungry wolves. Their ships were ugly things, covered in scars and mismatched armor taken from their victims. The lead vessel, a massive raider called the Bloodfang, opened communication channels to Kepler Station. "Zephyrian dogs," came the rough voice of Warlord Grix, the Krex leader. "You have 30 seconds to lower your shields and surrender all cargo. Refuse and we will take everything anyway after we kill everyone on the station." Admiral Klex looked at his tactical display. 38 Zephyrian ships against 62 Krex raiders. The math was not good. "All ships prepare to engage," Klex ordered. "Target their command vessel first." But before the first shots could be fired, Captain Morrison's voice came over a communication channel that Klex had never heard before. It was a military frequency used only by the most advanced fleet commands. "Liberty to Ranger 6, sweep the outer perimeter," Morrison said calmly. Klex felt his blood turn to ice. There was another ship out there, call sign Ranger 6, but his sensors showed nothing. "Liberty to Stalker 3, cover the evacuation routes," Morrison continued. "Stalker 3. How many ships were hidden out there?" "Liberty to Hunter Squadron, eliminate the command vessel." "Hunter Squadron?" A whole squadron of invisible ships. Suddenly the space around the Krex fleet erupted in explosions. The massive Bloodfang, Warlord Grix's flagship, simply disappeared in a ball of fire. There had been no warning, no visible attacker. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. What just happened? Lieutenant Vash shouted, staring at his sensor display in confusion. More Krex ships began exploding across the battlefield. They twisted and fired wildly, trying to hit enemies they could not see. Their weapons blasts hit empty space while invisible attackers struck them from impossible angles. The Liberty moved forward into the chaos, and suddenly it was no longer the small, harmless vessel it had appeared to be. The ship's hull began to glow with energy patterns that made Klex's eyes hurt to look at. Weapon systems that had been completely hidden extended from concealed ports along its sides. A Krex cruiser, one of their largest ships, turned to attack the Liberty. Its massive plasma cannons fired at point-blank range, enough firepower to destroy a Zephyrian destroyer. The plasma bolts hit the Liberty's shields and simply vanished. The human ship did not even slow down. In response, the Liberty fired a single beam of brilliant white energy. The beam cut through the Krex cruiser's shields like they were made of paper and sliced the massive ship cleanly in half. Both pieces exploded in secondary blasts that lit up the darkness. "Impossible," Klex whispered. No weapon he knew could cut through heavy armor that easily. More Krex ships died as the invisible human fleet continued its attack. Klex could see the effects of their weapons. Ships exploding, hulls tearing apart. Entire vessels simply vanishing, but he still could not see the attackers. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, "I am detecting massive energy discharges all around us, but I cannot locate the source." It is like the attacks are coming from ghosts. A group of Krex fighters tried to escape toward the edge of the system. They made it less than 1,000 kilometers before they began exploding one by one. Something was hunting them, something faster and more deadly than anything in the known galaxy. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication channel again, still perfectly calm as if he was discussing the weather. Ranger 6, confirm elimination of the escape routes. Routes secured. Liberty, came a reply in a different human voice. No survivors fleeing the engagement area. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the entire Krex swarm had been destroyed. Not a single pirate ship escaped. Not a single Zephyrian vessel had fired a shot. The space around Kepler Station was filled with debris and cooling wreckage. But no human ships were visible except for the Liberty. Morrison opened a communication channel to the station. Kepler Control, the immediate threat has been eliminated. Are there any casualties among your ships or the station? Klex found his voice. No casualties, Captain Morrison. Your assistance was unexpected. We are glad to help, Admiral. Pirates are a threat to all peaceful trade. The Liberty began moving back toward the station, looking once again like a small, harmless exploration vessel, but Klex now knew better. Captain, Klex said carefully, I would like to meet with you again. We need to discuss some things. Of course, Admiral. I will dock in 30 minutes. As the human ship approached the station, Klex turned to his officers. They all looked stunned, like people who had just witnessed something beyond their understanding. Sir, Vash said quietly, our sensors recorded 17 distinct weapon signatures during the battle. 17 different ships, all invisible to our detection systems. 17 ships destroyed 62 Krex raiders in 17 minutes, another officer added. That means each human ship is more powerful than our best warships. Klex nodded grimly. The humans had just demonstrated military technology that was centuries beyond anything the Zephyrians possessed. When Morrison returned to the station, he was met by Klex in the same meeting room where their first conversation had taken place. But now everything was different. Captain, Klex said as soon as the door closed, I think it is time for complete honesty. Morrison smiled, but it was a different kind of smile than before. It was the smile of someone who no longer needed to pretend. You are right, Admiral. We should talk honestly. How long have humans been operating in this part of the galaxy? Klex asked. About 280 years, Morrison replied. We began exploring beyond our home systems in the late 21st century. We encountered galactic civilization about 50 years later. Why did you stay hidden? Morrison's expression became serious. We learned early that the galaxy can be a dangerous place. There are species that conquer others, species that enslave entire worlds, species that destroy anything they do not understand. We decided it was better to watch and learn before revealing ourselves. But you did not just watch, Klex said. You helped. The hegemony war, the pirate attacks, the protection of trade routes. Why? Because we believe in protecting innocent people, Morrison replied simply. When we see genocide, slavery, or mass murder, we cannot just watch and do nothing. Klex leaned back in his chair. How many ships do you have? Enough, Morrison said. Our fleets are spread across the galaxy, watching, protecting, and occasionally intervening when necessary. And now you are revealing yourselves. Why? Morrison was quiet for a moment. Because the galaxy is changing, Admiral. There are new threats emerging. Dangers that will require cooperation between species. Humanity has decided it is time to step out of the shadows and work with other civilizations openly. Klex thought about this. The other governments will want to know about your technology, your capabilities, your territories, and they will learn what they need to know when they need to know it, Morrison replied. But Admiral, there is something you should understand. Today you asked why our entire fleet was on high alert when you only saw one human ship. Morrison stood and walked to the window that showed the space around the station. The question is not why our fleet was on alert, he said quietly. The question is why you thought we only had one ship here. Klex joined him at the window. The space looked empty except for his own Zephyrian vessels and the drifting debris from the destroyed Krex fleet. How many? Klex asked. Morrison smiled. Enough to keep you safe, Admiral. Enough to keep everyone safe. As if responding to some signal, the space around the station began to shimmer. Slowly, like ghosts becoming real, human ships began to appear. They materialized from nothing. their stealth systems deactivating to reveal sleek, powerful vessels that had been watching and waiting. Klex counted them as they appeared. 5, 10, 20, 30 ships. All of them were larger and more advanced than anything he had ever seen. They hung in space like predators, beautiful and deadly. "We have been here all along, Admiral," Morrison said. "Watching, protecting, waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves." Klex stared at the human fleet surrounding his station. Ships that could move unseen, weapons that could destroy anything, technology that was centuries beyond his understanding. "What happens now?" he asked. Morrison turned away from the window. "Now we work together. The galaxy faces dangers that no single species can handle alone. Humanity is ready to stand with our allies and face whatever comes." As Morrison prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Admiral," he said, "there is one more thing you should know. A message is being sent to Earth as we speak. The message says, 'First contact protocol completed successfully. The galaxy is ready to meet us officially.'" After Morrison left, Klex stood alone in the meeting room, staring out at the human fleet. For the first time in his career, he felt like the primitive species making first contact. The humans had been watching the galaxy for centuries, protecting it from dangers most species never knew existed. They had helped win wars, stopped pirates, prevented genocides, all while remaining completely hidden. Now they were revealing themselves, and Klex realized that everything was about to change. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a single day. Humanity had been the secret guardians of galactic civilization, and now they were stepping into the light.